Hello again. Today I'd like to talk a little bit about the long game versus the short game. I'd also like to talk about connecting the present with the future. Both are obviously connected. But first, if you would please do me this great favor. It would help me out so much. If you would click on this icon on the lower, where is that? In the lower right hand corner of your screen. Click on that to subscribe so you don't miss out on any other new videos coming your way. Forgot what I was going to say. I forgot what I was going to say. So the long game versus the short game. Connecting the present with the future. All too often we think of things in the here and now. And we don't connect the future. We don't think things through so that we say, what are the consequences of this 5 minutes from now or 5 years from now? We get out of high school, we think that we can fool around and play around, for example, and we don't prepare by thinking of the future. Maybe someday we want to get married and have a family. Maybe someday we want to travel, and these are all things that we have to consider presently in order to think of the future. And if we don't prepare and we don't go to school if that is required, or join the service or do any other thing that has a future goal in mind, we tend to basically make decisions in the here and now and with no thought of the future whatsoever. We're basically playing the short game. We're saying our instant gratification is more important than the delayed gratification of achieving a greater goal. The self-discipline that it takes, the sacrifice that it takes to achieve a greater goal, something in the future, whether it be 5 years from now or 50 years from now, like a retirement fund, for example. Often when we sacrifice and exercise self-discipline for those long-term goals, for the future, when we play the long game, we will ultimately have greater freedom, greater flexibility, and more enjoyment. Because first of all, we will have worked hard for what and sacrificed for what we wanted. Secondly, the sacrifice was worth getting to the destination because we have a sense of fulfillment and satisfaction in the fact that we denied ourselves and worked toward an actual goal to be achieved sometime in the future. So playing the long game is definitely to everyone's advantage, and it is to yours as well. Consider this. Let's play the short game versus the long game, for example. When dealing with a parent or a friend, or for that matter, if you are in some kind of relationship. Playing the short game is, I have to win every battle as it comes up. I have to dig in and be so entrenched that I can't maneuver. I can't have any goodwill toward anyone else because I have to dominate. I have to win. As opposed to someone playing the long game, which says, you know what? I'm not always right. I don't have to be right, even if I am right. I don't have to be. I don't have to win this argument. I have to win the goodwill of the person with whom I have a disagreement. And sometimes that requires a little bit of sacrifice on your part. Sometimes it requires you to give up something and sacrifice something on your part. Not saying that you have to deny what you believe or what you think, but you should also consider another point of view. And you're not so concerned about whether or not you're going to win in this instant, because ultimately you're playing a long game in which the greater good and the overall mission is more important to you than this little battle that you are fighting right now. The long game is, I care about this relationship enough where I'm not going to cause the waves and the ill will that having to win every petty little thing and be right all the time affords. So the key is to not play the short game, but to play that long game, to think of the present in relation to the future as opposed to standing on its own. When you think of the present and you live in the present, you tend to not think of what the consequences of those actions are in the future. So in order to build a relationship with someone, whether it be at work or in a friendship or even in a romantic relationship, it's important to remember to play the long game, where you're willing to sacrifice and give up certain things in the short term in order to earn goodwill and trust in the long term. The requirement to win every time and get it all your own way is a very short-sighted, short-term goal. And we all fall into it. I don't want you to think that you're the only one or that I don't do that either. But the reality is that if we think of the present and how it ties into the future and play that long game, we are afforded much more flexibility and freedom. It's the difference between thinking tactically and thinking strategically. Thinking tactically is being focused on the here and now and having to win right now, every battle. Wouldn't you rather lose right now a little skirmish in order to win the war? And that's what thinking strategically does. We think in terms of the big picture. How can we win where everyone benefits, as opposed to winning this little argument and getting our way just for the sake of making our ego larger? These are things to consider when you deal with people. Seek an opportunity to have a relationship and build relationships through goodwill and through compromise, from being a benefit and a blessing to someone else. I once heard a saying, it's instead of trying to be important, be useful. Think about that. Be useful to your fellow man. Benefit your fellow man. Help your fellow man. Instead of be important, be the center of attention. That's thinking strategically. That's playing the long game. Answer this question up here. Do you play the short game to have your way, or do you want to play the long game so that everyone wins? We should always be cognizant of the reality of a big picture, probably one that we don't even yet see. So are you playing the long game or the short game?